Rome's worst nightmare was Africa's sun. Rome believed it was destined to rule the world. Disciplined legions, iron weapons, endless ambition. They called themselves civilization. But long before Rome dominated the Mediterranean, Africa was already powerful. Across the sea stood Carthage, a North African empire of wealth, naval mastery, architecture, trade, and military brilliance. Its ships ruled the waters. Its merchants controlled commerce. Its generals understood strategy. And from that African empire rose a commander Rome would fear for generations, Hannibal Barca. Not a footnote, not a side character in Rome's story. A central threat to Roman survival. As a child in Africa, Hannibal swore an oath before the gods. He would never be a friend to Rome. This was not chaos. This was discipline. This was legacy. He was trained in African military tradition, educated in strategy, forged in a civilization Rome underestimated. And that underestimation would cost Rome rivers of blood. When war came, Hannibal did not attack the way Rome expected. He did something greater. He showed the world that African strategy could outthink Europe's rising empire. He marched from Iberia, through Gaul, across the frozen Alps, with African war elephants, an African general bringing the power of his homeland over mountains. Rome believed no army could cross. That was not luck, that was vision. At Trebia, Rome was defeated. At Lake Trasimene, Rome was ambushed and destroyed. Then came 216 BC, Cannae. Rome assembled one of the largest armies it had ever raised, nearly 80,000 soldiers, 20 legions. They believed numbers meant supremacy. Hannibal showed them intellect defeats arrogance. He drew them inward, controlled their movement, closed the circle, encircled, crushed. One of the deadliest days in Roman history, and it was engineered by a son of Africa. To this day, military academies teach the maneuver used at Cannae. They call it the double envelopment, a masterpiece of tactical genius, created by an African commander 2,000 years ago. Julius Caesar used this to beat Gaul later on. For over a decade, Hannibal walked across Italy. Rome's legions avoided direct confrontation. Roman leaders panicked. Children were warned with his name. Imagine that. The empire that would later dominate Europe once trembled at an African general. History often magnifies Rome, but it does not always magnify the African empire that nearly broke it. Carthage was not primitive. It was advanced. It was organized. It was powerful. And Hannibal was its sharpest weapon. Rome eventually recovered, but it never erased the lesson. Africa was not a passive land waiting to be conquered. It was a land of empires, of strategists, of commanders who could challenge the greatest powers of their time. And when Rome looked south across the Mediterranean, it did not see weakness. It saw Carthage, it saw Hannibal, it saw Africa, and for years, it saw its worst nightmare. This is not just Rome's story. It is Africa's reminder. Long before colonization, long before distortion, long before history was filtered through foreign lenses, Africa produced empires that challenged the world, strategists who reshaped warfare, leaders who made superpowers tremble. Hannibal was not an exception. He was evidence. Evidence that Africa has always been a force, intellectual, military, and civilizational. And when you remember that, you don't just remember Hannibal, you remember who you come from. Africa, comment Africa power.